I want to actually look at some of the literature that is provided by RJM on this. And one thing that I appreciate just as somebody who is building rigs is there are color-coded lines that really explain very thoroughly where the signal path is going on the front of this. So you can very clearly see
Yeah.
where each input is going, where the outputs are connected. And the really cool thing about this as well that I think really separates it from a lot of mixers is that you have the ability to go stereo out by using TRS cables. And I believe is the input also stereo in, Ron, on this one with TRS?
The wet inputs are always TRS stereo, and then the
Yep.
dry input, the buffer/dry input and output have jumpers on the inside that let you configure for mono in or mono out and stereo in or stereo out, just so you can adapt to your rig needs.
It's just a really great way to be able to do it because you are saving on the number of jacks that you would need. Obviously, if every single one of these was a mono jack for input left and input right, this would be double the size that it is. So it's actually a great space saving measure as far as the design is concerned. I want to share my screen here quickly though, because I think some of the basic uses might be best exemplified through a visual here, and we'll do the best that we can to maybe make sure that if you're viewing this or you're listening to this, that we give you an accurate description. This is the quick start manual, and there's a few different manuals that are associated here, and we'll maybe go through a couple of them, but it just gives a really nice, clear demonstration of kind of where everything is. So I'm going to zoom in maybe a little bit more than we might need to, but we just want to make sure everything is really clear. So on the right side of the unit, you have your dry input, and Ron, you've said that this can go mono or stereo, and you can configure it accordingly by way of an internal jumper, or is it dip switch?
They're internal jumpers that you move.
Great. So super easy. Just all it will require is you opening up the bottom and then reconfiguring the position of those jumpers.
Correct.
That's for the dry input. And then does that also affect the stereo output of the buffer out and the mixer out, or are those always configured for stereo?
Dry in and buffer out are configurable for mono or stereo, and the wet inputs and the mixer out are always stereo.
So you can see you have your mono, you have your dry in, you have your buffered out, and we'll explain why this is important in a moment, and there's some of the demonstrations that show this. You have 3 stereo wet inputs. You have a mixed output that's mixing all 3 wet inputs. Of course, you don't need to use all those wet inputs. If you only have 2 wet effects, you're not required to use all 3. And then you have your dry level, which is adjusting how much of the dry signal that you want involved, and then the wet signal.